Oh, thank you, Amy Bishop and Gary Lynn Floyd. What a lovely piece of music to bring us into what is going to be the last talk of 2020 that we give here at Centers for Spiritual Living. So I want to welcome you to our center and to our broadcast. We are really standing on this threshold. Here we are. It's been a long year. Don't you agree? It really has. And I think a lot of us have been kind of gearing up because we just want 2020 to be over. For many of us, 2020 is probably one of the darkest years we've experienced in our lifetimes. There's been so much upheaval. There's been so much crisis. There's been so much discordance, right? It really has. And all month we've been looking at the long nights of December, and we were working our way up to solstice, but we're also working our way towards this new year and what it is that we want to bring into it. And so this morning I'm going to be talking about making magic out of tragic. Catchy little phrase, but it occurred to me that much of what we've experienced through 2020 may have felt tragic to some. Some psychologists have been saying that 2020 has been like global trauma for many people. And I know that not all of us have been affected that way, but certainly there's been something that's raised your temperature or perhaps elicited a very energetic response to what's going on in the world and with your neighbors and whether it's wearing a mask or the political campaign that's been going on or the transition that's happening, or perhaps you've had the misfortune of having a loved one who became ill because of the pandemic. No matter how you slice it, we're really moving through a big shift. And 2020 has really, if I think about the process of newness, every single one of us has been through birth. You may not have given birth, but you've been born. You've been through that process of moving from the warm comfort of the womb and out into the world through that challenging tunnel of the birth canal. And so perhaps 2020 is just that, this birth canal that we've been in. And unfortunately, I'm not sure that we're through. I think we might have a little bit longer to go through. I know that there have been vaccines are starting to be given to the most vulnerable, but I think we have a little more time before we come through this. And if 2020 has taught me anything, it's that I need to be flexible and I need to be available to whatever is going to happen next. But here at Centers for Spiritual Living, we have a philosophy and a way of life that talks about the power of our minds and the power of our heart and the power of prayer and intentions to really create our reality. And so what I know for many of you is that you've been able to move through this quite gracefully, even with a little bit of upheaval or some challenges. We're all moving through this at our own rate and our own pace. What I know is that trauma seems to be the buzzword this year that I'm hearing that's up in my lexicon as I look at my news feed and the people that I'm working with. And I know that some of us have navigated this better than others. And I don't want to make light of the difficult experiences that people are having, but what my experience with trauma and with challenges is that the healthiest response to that is to stay awake and to stay conscious and to allow yourself to move through this awake. Awake and available to what wants to come up. My personal experience with challenges, with difficulties, with trauma, if you will, is that something in me always gets forged. Some some newness, something that I couldn't have accessed when I was kicking back, eating bonbons, watching Netflix. Like when I move through those difficult situations in my life, they always seem to shepherd in something powerful and potent. And so I have to believe that as we're moving through this process of putting some closure on 2020 and beginning to experience and make way for some newness, that there is something that is being drawn out, something that's being called forth. We need only look at nature to recognize that even nature has patterns and practices that she moves through as she changes from one season to the next, as one cycle completes itself and another cycle begins. It's not always easy. Oftentimes there's some kind of letting go, some kind of death, some kind of diminishment or seeming diminishment as something completes its cycle. And I'm reminded of the caterpillar and the butterfly, and I know it's a well-used metaphor, but it seems perfect right here, right now, in this last opportunity for us to really be conscious in 2020 together through our community gathering that we call our celebration of life. And so when you think about the caterpillar, it's got many, many legs. It only knows how to creep along branches. It has no idea what flight even is in its existence. Its existence is completely different. And when it is time for it to move into that next stage of its life, it has to find some firm foundation for it to rest on so that it can create a safe environment for itself so that it can completely liquefy its body. As a matter of fact, that's been a metaphor for me. When I've gone through some of my most difficult times, I've thought to myself, oh my God, I'm just liquefying. I'm just liquefying. That's all that's happening. But the thing to know about liquefaction, if you will, especially if we take an example from the caterpillar and the butterfly, is that somewhere in the ooze, those imaginal cells are alive and well in that cocoon and know how to take the caterpillar's body through the liquefaction process and begin to create the magic that we know as butterflies, especially here in Santa Cruz with all our beautiful monarchs. And so what I want to draw from that, and I want to encourage you to remember, is that no matter what shift we're going through, no matter what challenges we're experiencing, no matter what kind of liquefaction our culture and our society is going through, somewhere within the ooze of shift and somewhere in the ooze of change are those imaginal cells that are simply going to guide us to this next yet to be. Somebody wise and clever once said that the only thing that is permanent is change. The only thing that's permanent in life is change. Life is forever changing and morphing and shifting, and we humans spend a lot of time trying to avoid it. Spend a lot of time trying to make it perfect. I was listening to a Christmas service, and the minister talked about the Christmas story and how the story of the birth of the baby Jesus, despite the fact that we have this holiday where we try to make everything perfect, very Martha Stewart-like, with all the decorations and the wonderful food, and we want all the presents to be perfect, and the wrapping and the decorations, and yet we are honoring what was a crazy, messed up, confusing happenstance. This family had to leave their home to be counted for taxation. They didn't have a place to stay. They had to sleep in a barn. She gives birth without her family around her, with the sheep and the cows, and strangers show up. I mean, it was nothing perfect about this at all. Seriously. And yet, we look at that as a metaphor for the miracle of the Christ consciousness that is born again in our human self. And so, all this to say that I think it's really time for us to honor the mess. Honor the mess of 2020. Something amazing is trying to come forth through all of this. Something beautiful. And I know this because every other time I have been faced with a similar situation where my life has looked like it was liquefying, I have come out through the other side stronger, more courageous, more powerful. And I know you have too. I know we've all had those experiences at one time or another. And if for some reason you're not in touch with them, this is the time to draw them forward, because they will give you courage and they will give you strength to move through whatever is before you that is unknown and uncomfortable and massively untidy. Because that's just where we are right now. This is the time of year when everybody does a lot of reflection. And so I was thinking about my own stories of moving through massive change, or moving through really challenging times. And one of the things that comes forward, I make no secret about the fact that I am a recovering alcoholic. And 39 years ago, my world ended. It just ended. It was a mess. It was full of pain and disappointment and confusion. And I found a firm foundation in people who supported me as I moved through my own metamorphosis, as I let go of my caterpillar, which was represented by alcoholism, and into my butterfly, which was represented as freedom. And I want to tell you that the things that I've gained from moving through that experience are immeasurable and required the liquefaction in order for that powerful experience of what I term sobriety and awareness and awakeness. All of those things are byproducts of that really difficult time. And honestly, there's never been a time in my life when I have kind of been on that threshold of great change and things have been really difficult, that there's never been a time when I've woken up and said, today I'm going to embrace my pain, my suffering, and my disappointment so that I can change. And you bet your bottom dollar that there's no conscious thought in the caterpillar. I can't wait to liquefy this body and in every cell of my being to become ooze. But there's so much power on the other side of those situations, those transformational experiences that we have as human beings. And so we have been talking a little bit about this, the dark night and coming back into the light, and through our e-news, and we've talked about the burning bowl. Now, in years past, we would be inviting you into our sanctuary, and we would prepare a beautiful ritual for you so that you could consciously and intentionally decide what you want to release and leave behind, and then set some intentions for the new year. But we can't do that right now. So we're being very creative. So I'm going to invite you through a process, if you'll join me, of inquiry and stillness. And through that process, perhaps you'll find something that you're ready to really bless and honor and release into the liquefaction of the old. You will need a pencil and paper. but you won't need it right now. And so if we could start a little background music just to set us in the stage here. And I'm going to invite you to close your eyes or lower your gaze. Taking a deep breath and letting all that breath go. Allowing your breath to bring your mind and your heart together in the stillness of the center of your being. And just relaxing so that you can ready yourself for deep listening. And ask your higher wisdom self to bring to your mind this last year of 2020. Maybe you could just take a stroll through all that you've been through the last year. All the things that you've experienced. How the year started off with such promise. So many things we may have had planned. And then in March, everything changed. And how we had to move with the change, or not move with the change, or struggle with the change. Just moving through the year, into spring and then into summer. Thinking about the things that you've been through and allowing yourself to capture those things that you're ready to leave behind. Things that no longer serve you, or things that might have caused disharmony in your life. Perhaps someone comes to mind and brings up the feelings of anger. Write that person's name down. Or perhaps there's someone you must forgive. Maybe you're harboring guilt for something you've done and you desire forgiveness for yourself. Breathing in and trusting that Spirit and your higher wisdom self brings up exactly what it is that you're ready to let go of. Whatever's coming up in your mind, don't ignore it. Don't try to push it away. For this is the voice of Spirit. And I encourage you to listen. For on the other side of this is freedom. Just being thoughtful and courageous as you allow yourself to bring forward what it is that's ready to be released from this unusual and challenging year. If anything comes to mind, just write it down. Describe the events or the situations or the individuals as little or as much as you want. It can be as simple as a name or a word. Let your heart open and allow love to carry you through. Allow it to flow through you as you and by you. Allow it to release old wounds, negativity, or unhealthy thought patterns. Not to push them down or to bury them, but to feel them long enough so that you know you're ready to let them go. And once you have written something down on your piece of paper, take a moment to honor what you're about to release, much like the liquefaction of the caterpillar. These things came up to shepherd you into your next yet to be, to shepherd you into greater wholeness and greater fullness. And in the safety of this space that we create within the cocoon of this community, allow yourself to begin to let go. For letting go begins the moment you put pen to paper. It is the conscious awareness that brings the activation of the release of hardship or problems or challenges from your life. And taking a deep breath, I'm going to offer a little call and response of an affirmation, and I'm going to invite you to repeat each sentence after me. Today, I release what no longer serves me. I let go and let God. I let God do the work. In this, I am strengthened. In this, I am renewed. I open my heart to love. I am blessed with peace. I am blessed with joy. And my blessings bless the world. If we were here together in the sanctuary, Reverend Elijah and I would be inviting you up to the platform to release these pieces of paper into the fire. We will be doing that offline, and we invite you to, if you would like us to burn these for you in a beautiful ritual that we will record and share with you after the fact, to bring these things to the center, mail them. You can email them to me. I will keep them in confidence, and we will give them to the fire of renewal. You may want to do this at home safely in your own ritual, but I encourage you to embrace a ritual, because what the ritual does for us is it allows us to embody it in a more sacred way that we might not do just thinking about it or just praying about it, but actually having some kind of tangible ritual, like writing it down and putting it in an envelope. That's a ritual enough. Giving yourself this opportunity to really bless and release and make space for the newness. And once you've completed the ritual, it's then time to inhabit that space that you've created, and you might find it helpful to journal. You might want to do a vision board. These are all things that can be very powerful to move you into a more intentional space of newness as we step into the new year. There's a lot of energy in our, in the human culture and society around endings and beginnings, and this is a great opportunity for you to take advantage of that. If you want, you can write an intention down for the new year, maybe a letter to yourself, and you, just like last year, you can entrust it to our practitioners who will pray over it all year. You can give us a self-addressed stamped envelope, and then we will mail it to you at the end of the year. These are all ways that we are poised to support you. And yes, it's not what we're used to. Yes, it's kind of messy. But yes, perhaps this is exactly what we need to get out of whatever energy might be stuck so that we can open to a more powerful and potent existence. I know that evolution isn't about not being good enough and becoming better, but it is about that place of being more embodied forever and ever moving up the spiral of creation to experience our wholeness as God in form. I want to thank you for hanging with us all year, for the different ways that we've been able to come to you, for the tech team who's done such a great job exploring new technology, for our beloved community who continues to support us, and we continue to find new and innovative ways to connect with one another. We ain't done yet. There's more to come. I know in the coming year we have some ideas about how to create deeper connection, although it will be through technology. And this virus will be a thing of the past at some point, and we'll be able to be together again in our sanctuary. We'll be able to socialize afterwards in our social hall. Hold all of that with me in this powerful prayer as we end our time together. Taking a deep breath and knowing with me that there is indeed a power and a presence. There's a creative life force that is forever moving in, as, and through all life. It can never not move. It can never not flow. And it is ours to embrace and allow and be that channel for greater wholeness, greater wisdom, greater beauty, greater joy. And so I know that everyone within the sound of my voice is simply allowing themselves to be deeply blessed, blessed by their willingness to be conscious, blessed by their willingness to be open and available to newness, blessed by their willingness to be on their own evolutionary edge. For I know this edge is an edge where we hold each other in our imaginary arms while we can't literally hold each other. I know that each one holds the other in our heart, and that we create this container for us to move through this change. And I know that on the other side of this, like the caterpillar and the butterfly, we will indeed fly. The sun will shine, the stars will dance, and even in this moment, in our imagination, we are together. I give great thanks for this. And it is in joy that I anchor this prayer and this last talk for 2020 in power and in presence and in love. And together we say, and so it is.